Good. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on the part of the world we are at. Just to share some quick housekeeping rules. My name is Margaret Olele. Before we start, some quick housekeeping rules. So your mics will be muted as you log in, and only the panelists can have their video on. And if you want to speak, kindly signify by raising your hand. And you can send in your questions during the Q&A. And when sending these questions, please identify yourself and your organization. And the relevant questions and relevant materials and resources will be made available to everyone after the webinar. And so we'll go quickly to the agenda, and then I would hand over to the president of the American Business Council, Dipo Faulkner. But quickly, we are going to have welcome remarks from Dipo, and then would have the governor, when he joins us, talk about briefly the youth engagement in the political space for the development of the nation. And then we would have the DG of the Nigerian Orientation Agency talk about, share his thoughts around the violence and why everyone's hands should be on deck. And then we'd have some thoughts from the team, IL CRO, Mr. David Edmond, and then would have the panel moderated by Professor Patutomi. And so at this point, I will just hand over to Dipo. Dipo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Good afternoon, everybody. His Excellency, the Governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kade Fayemi, and distinguished speakers. Good afternoon once again. There's an intricate link between peace and economic prosperity. The rampant occurrence of insecurity within Nigeria, the incident has cast a big shadow of doubt on investors' confidence in the country. We see this in the decline in the level of quarterly foreign direct investments from 251 million in Q4 of 2020 to about 154 million in Q1 of 2021. And then more recently, when you look at the figures for Q2, it's gone further down to 77 million, about 77.9 million in Q2 2021. Lessons from the Economic Impact Survey carried out by the American Business Council on US companies also highlighted the fact that insecurity is a major concern for US investors in Nigeria. The webinar today has been organized with the objective of throwing light on the importance of private sector participation in maintaining the peace, helping bridge the gap between government and the public for the good of all, and to provide an alternative narrative to the proposed solution for insecurity in Nigeria. Our keynote speaker today has been carefully selected, and is person of the, His Excellency the Governor, Governor Kade Fayemi of Ekiti State, who will be our keynote speaker for this afternoon. Just a bit about Dr. Fayemi. The Governor of Ekiti and is currently the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, was born on February 9, 1965. He's a native of Ishon Ekiti, Oye local government of the state. He attended Christ Schools, Ado Ekiti, and received his bachelor's degree in philosophy, history, and politics from the University of Lagos. And he has a master's of science degree in international relations from University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University of Ile-Ife. Dr. Fayemi holds a doctorate in war studies from the King's College, University of London, England, specializing in civil military relations. During his days at the University of Lagos, he was deeply involved in student activism and the movement for the emancipation of Black South Africans. Before venturing into full-time partisan politics in 2005, he was the pioneer executive director of the Center for Democracy and Development, a research and training institute dedicated to the study and promotion of democratic government, development, peace building, and human security in Africa. Prior to this establishment of the center, he worked as a lecturer, he worked as a journalist, researcher, and strategy development advisor in Nigeria and the United Kingdom. He was strategy development advisor at London City Challenge. He was also a research fellow at the African Research and Information Bureau in London, United Kingdom. Amongst his numerous academic and public policy engagements at home and abroad, the governor has lectured in Africa, he has lectured in Europe, the Americas, and Asia as a fellow and as a visiting expert. Dr. Fayemi was a technical expert to ECOWAS, on Small Arms and Light Weapons, and United Nations Economic Commissions of Africa on governance issues. He also served as a member of the African Policy Advisory Panel of the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office. At other times, he served as a consultant to the OECD on security sector reform and chaired the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative Committee of Experts on developing guiding principles and mechanisms of constitution making in Commonwealth Africa. Dr. Fahmi is a fellow of the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, University of Ibadan, adjunct professor of security studies at the African Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University, and the Fort McNair, Washington, D.C., USA. Governor Kari Fahmi is a scholar, is an author, is a researcher, is someone who's well sought after speaker, is a thought leader, is a security sector governance expert, and one of the most influential Nigerian politicians. His hobby is obviously reading, and his passion is developing a new crop of young, creative, and knowledgeable young men and women as successors for the next generation of leaders. Your Excellency, you're welcome once again, and over to you at this point.
Finding it difficult to log in, and let's suggest that Dr. Barry, we take Dr. Barry and then we'll come on to his excellency.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Garba Abari, Director General of the National Orientation Agency. I would want to thank most profoundly the organizers of this webinar for the topicality of the issues that are up for discussion today. In Nigeria, and perhaps in many parts of the world, there cannot be a better topic for discussion than the issue of peace. I am very happy to be invited to make some comments on, rather than violence, all hands should be on deck. And this is particularly a clarion call to all Nigerians, that a country this big, a country like Nigeria this diverse, and a country like Nigeria this massively endowed in both human and material resources, definitely cannot afford not to have peace as a sine qua non for the attainment of its national development objectives. And this is very necessary because over the years, we have actually jettisoned all that our forefathers had worked towards bringing about a working environment, a country that was functioning. Our forefathers worked to establish certain standards of governance. Of course, they might have definitely differed in their methods, in their tactics, in their details, but obviously they have succeeded in bringing out and building a society that was working and was functional. Along the line, in the course of our nation building efforts, we missed the bus. And reasons as to why we missed the bus had already been adduced to by so many scholars in many fora, in many studies, and and the efforts to establish why and how we missed the bus. The truth is, we are paying for abandoning what was bequeathed to us, and consequently, our development objectives have been derailed. We lost focus in our government and the governmental processes and the procedures. We failed to manage this dialogue of ours that should have actually a source and a sense of pride, not only for we as Nigerians, but for Africa. And of course, we have lost what should have become our strength and a bedrock of our development objectives. Why must all hands be on deck? All hands should be on deck because unless Nigeria, as the late Nelson Mandela had said, is able to earn the respect of the international community, unless Nigeria is able to earn the respect of the world, sense of pride for us must be the flag bearers and even our massive national resources, human and material. There are 3 levels that will require all hands to be on deck. First, at the level of governance. Our government process to encourage participation. It should encourage inclusion. It should respect rights. It should encourage the inclusion of not only all the privileged citizens, but even the most vulnerable of our citizens. Our men and women and our disabled must be part and parcel of our developmental processes. We must encourage, and not only encourage, but be seen to be guided by the rule of law, because no society actually can make progress without adherence to the basic tenets and the principles of the rule of law. We must be consensus driven. We must be consensus driven because in a society, this plural consensus is necessary, and the consensus building can occur where there is justice, where there is equity, there is a sense of hierarchy, and where there is commitment towards the rights of each and every other person. This is at the level of corporate organizations, for example, because and in any society where there is no peace, where there is no order, the corporate entities become the first on the line of losses. Markets cannot open, factories cannot produce, individuals will be busy actually trying to protect their lives and going to the markets. Worship cannot happen, banks cannot open, and therefore what the cumulative effect of all of this is nothing but economic stagnation. We are not yet stagnated, but from a personal perspective, somebody coming from the northeast, and of course in Maiduguri, the epicenter of the Boko Haram, I can attest to how Borno State and Maiduguri, as a distinct border economy, had suffered. In fact, how we completely economic lives of the people had suffered a meltdown on account of conflict and the lack of peace. In fact, it got to a point, the situation was so bad that people could not even go out, not only to worship, not to go to the market or to go to schools, people cannot even go out to bury their dead. We have gotten to that point at one point, at one time in the history of in our history. And this is all on account of the recent events that we have been passing through as a result of the Boko Haram insurgents. Justice, fairness, and equity at all levels of governance must be there. So the organized private sector must actually join hands with government together to create an enabling environment so that all the indices that I have actually outlined towards the creation of a peaceful society can be actualized. But then in all of this also, that is the fundamental role of the citizen. What do you expect the citizen to do? What will the citizen, what is expected of the citizen? First is for the citizen to be a good ambassador of self. To be a good ambassador of self. And being a good ambassador of self can be informed from what is being seen as being exhibited by leadership. A leadership that is visionary, a leadership that is transparent, a leadership that can be held to account, a leadership that can be can be bold to take decisions not for the purpose of playing to the gallery, but decisions that can be painful if such decisions can advance the cause of national development and national objectives. Now, when such kind of leadership exists, the citizen as an individual and at individual capacity can definitely now be seen or will have the basis to be a good ambassador, to respect the laws, to respect the laws, to love country, to have loyalty for the country, to behave as if he can give his life whenever called upon, even if blindfolded, in the defense of the country. Now, in all of this, the citizen also needs the support of other key stakeholders. Just as government and private sector need to come together to create an environment for a conflict-free society, the citizen has this role of getting the support of the media, security agencies, civil society organizations, religious leaders, community leaders, political parties, for the purposes of leadership recruitment. Political parties for the purposes of leadership recruitment and all other identifiable stakeholders that will be required. Now, why all of this? Why must we all say that there must be?
Hello, Doctor. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
We need to round up this segment very quickly. We're running thin on time. We have less than an hour to go. Please can you
maybe a minute or two?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Now, in order to do this, I have singled out government is expected to do the following: constitutional responsibility for the security and the welfare of Nigerians, and promote peaceful atmosphere. Promote inclusiveness in governance to ensure public confidence. Ensure equitable distribution of resources to give every segment of the society a sense of belonging. Address the problem of hate speeches and the fake news through appropriate legislation and sanction. But most importantly, government should not allow any gap in its information dissemination to the citizens. Government should tackle the proliferation of small arms and deadly weapons through effective border control and sanctions to violators. Government should address intergenerational relations by empowering the youth to participate in governance, economy, and enterprise. Political parties have a key role to play in this, and then support the establishment of structures for peace, justice, and integration. Thank you very much, Professor Panotomi.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the remarks. I believe we have the governor on now. I'd like to welcome on Governor Parashe to give his opening remarks.
Fine.
Sorry, Dr. Fayemi, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
Abidevi, can you hear me now?
Looks like the governor is still having connection problems.
Oh, okay. All right. But I can't hear Dr. Abari. I can't hear Dipo too.
Okay.
It's because you cannot hear me because I'm done.
Yeah, but I think that it could be internet connection problems from your end.
Yes,
the governor here now?
Yes, he is.
Okay. I can see his
yes, Prof.
name.
I tried to let Abidevi know that I couldn't hear you even during practice session, and I was worried.
Okay.
You didn't hear me.
But I heard him very well. Before the commencement of the program, we chatted with Dr. Abari. So I wonder why I can't talk to you now. Or I can't hear you.
But I'm already done.
Okay. While we're still waiting for Dr. Kayode Fayemi, it looks like he's muted or he's having challenges. So we're still at the back end trying to reach out to his team to just understand what is going on. We would just give ourselves like a minute or so, and then we would go on with the panel.
Okay, Maggie, I'm here. Don't worry. I'll wait.
Okay, thank you. So while we are still waiting for the governor, so this is really why we're hoping that eventually we get to the next level in our part of the world. Internet continues to be a challenge, and we're hoping to resolve a couple of things. So what we would like to, because we're not getting feedbacks on what the updates are, we're just seeing him, but we don't know what the issues are. And a lot of people are already here, and we wouldn't want to keep people waiting as well. So we would pick the ask Edmond to share his thoughts, very short, very sharp, so we get to the panel, because really this is a meet, to get fresh insights from the fantastic array of speakers we have today, and the fantastic moderator we have. We don't have these opportunities every time. So, yeah. Edmond, please.
Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for this opportunity, ABC Nigeria. I'm glad to be here. Of late, I've described myself to people as one of the 7,001 that have not relocated to Canada and do not have any plans to. But this is not to cast aspersions at people who have. I say to people personally, that if you've not relocated to Canada, you are either of 4 categories. You are either ignorant, suicidal, seeing something, or doing something. And I want to believe that I fall to the latter. And this would essentially be about what we see and what we're doing at the moment. I believe that Nigeria has tremendous potential. You know, for some reason, we've not been able to come together and build that great nation of our dreams. And I think at the center of it is a lack of respect and a lack of values. The values in our society are going to the dogs, and something needs to be done urgently. If you look at the recent NSAS situation we had, I wasn't born during the Civil War. This is the closest I've had to it, and it was really scary. And I said to myself, we need to do something, and who better to reach out to than a society that seems, yes, they have challenges today, but they seem to have got it together. That is the United States, and I believe that the ABC Nigeria is the representative of the US, so to speak, in Nigeria outside of the embassy, and that's why we've reached out to them. The long and short of today's presentation is something I saw online recently, a Sierra Leonean who said, we don't know what we're doing. We're joking with ourselves. If we don't manage to respect ourselves, respect our differences, and come together, we'll have ourselves to blame at the end of the day. And it reminds me of something Professor Otomi said to us sometime back about a Liberian ambassador who was his neighbor, who said to him that, look, they are living a regret today because when they saw the problem coming, they didn't do anything about it. I believe that at the end of this session, we would be able to raise up a few points that would lead us to a reasonable and practical solution. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much, Abidemi. So we are going to hand over to Professor Patutomi right now to kickstart the panel conversation. Over to you, Prof.
Well, thank you so very much. I am enormously hopeful that Governor Kayode Fayemi will join us and he will overcome the internet challenges, because he does have a particularly interesting perspective. Dr. Fayemi is security and strategy person as an academic, and I'm sure I don't know the details of his presentation. I know that he knows very well a gentleman that I have often cited in looking at external conditions, a gentleman called Robert Kaplan. I suspect that in his work, he must be intimately aware of Robert Kaplan's book titled The Coming Anarchy. And in that volume, Kaplan talks about what can happen to us and points to trends that suggest that West Africa could actually descend into anarchy as a result of certain cleavages, religious cleavages, economic cleavages, ethnic cleavages. And he was bold enough to suggest that all of these actually seem like they can come together in a city in Nigeria called Jos. And the whole of West Africa could actually travel from there down the road to Somalia and further. I became fascinated with Robert Kaplan before he wrote the book Coming Anarchy, because he had written a previous book titled Balkan Ghosts, which actually predicted what happened in the Balkans after Tito died. And so I am kind of sure that my friend, the governor of Ekiti, is very familiar with those, and that his contribution may put us in proper context to look at the needful. Just as my other friend, Dr. Abari, was saying, it calls for some bold action. Now, Bidemi, in his own comments had mentioned some of my earlier remarks. I had and by the way, I'm trying to kill a little time to see if Gonfayemi will log in. But if not, I'll go to the panel very quickly. But I'm trying to scope the terrain while hoping that he's getting over his challenges. Many years ago, I lived here that I'm speaking from in Victoria Island in Lagos. The Liberian embassy was not far from where I lived. And the ambassador from Liberia was my schoolmate from grad school in the US. Now, I recall that one day I was coming back and I saw his stuff being packed. And I said to him, "Sai, what's happening? Where are you going?" His name was Sirenius 4. And Sai said, "Look, my friend, people are saying to me, what are you doing in America? This PhD business, there's so much opportunity in Liberia." So Sai abandoned his PhD. Okay. All right. So anyway, we're starting the panel discussion in a minute or two, but I was just, like I said, still tarrying a bit for Governor Fayemi. And I said that my friend, Sirenius 4, returned quickly to Liberia. And on return to Liberia, he moved very quickly up the ladder. And then one day from nowhere, he was watching. He said politicians were doing the wrong things. And he, not just any other person, could have done something. But he said, if I do something, I'll risk this Mercedes, this nice Mercedes I'm driving. So let me keep quiet. And then a short while after, some staff sergeant knocked out the politicians. And he saw the staff sergeant begin to do things wrongly. And he said, I don't want to risk it. I have a house now. I don't want anything to happen to my house. And so he kept quiet. He said, shortly after, one day, you know, if you're driving down the street with your Mercedes, it was as easy as somebody knocking on the window and saying, "My friend, come out, come out." And he said, "Thank God, it's just the Mercedes. At least I'm still okay. I have a house." Then you get home, and one night somebody locks the door. Bo, 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 bo. He said, "My friend, pack out. Commandante won't use this house." He said he's lost his house, he's lost his Mercedes, and the next time, the hand is getting cut off. And he said to me, and this is the most telling part of this conversation with Sirenius 4. He said, "You Nigerians, we thank you, we bless God for you. Nigerian blood is being poured like water down the drains in Liberia to save us, and we're very grateful. You know, but what I can't understand is you Nigerians are doing exactly what got us where we are, and you see us and you're taking no lessons from it." This was Sirenius 4 at the time that Nigeria was just Babangida era, trying to save Liberia. And he would come to my house. Even the president of Liberia at that time went to the same school that Sai and I went to. In fact, he's still a professor there, Indiana University in Bloomington. And so I keep reminding people of this, that we can become guilty by omission and get into big trouble. But we know that this is a serious challenge. Now, to get to the panel, we've got a power-packed group of people who understand economics, who understand being players in an economy, who understand communication. And I think that it's appropriate for us to make the point that if we do not tap into what is known about the challenges we have and the need for peace and goodwill, we may be in much deeper trouble than we seem to be today. So I'd just like to pose to the panel a question. I wouldn't typically go one-to-one, but I'd like to ask my friend and colleague Ayo Teriba to perhaps lead off, because the nature of the economic challenges of our country are such that, you know, being one of those deep cleavages that Robert Kaplan pointed to, we could be in serious trouble if we didn't scope that territory. So let me begin pointedly from Ayo's side, and then with the rest, what I'll generally do is raise a question and allow everybody and encourage everybody to please jump in on the high points they have on that particular question. And those of you who may watch the television series that I've hosted for 22 years now, it's called Patito's Gang, will know that that's my style of getting that kind of conversation going. So,
Right.
Dr. Teriba, could you kindly give us a sense for the challenge of peace, security, and economic performance?
Thank you very much, Prof. And good afternoon, everyone. Permit me to stand upon already established protocols and just diving into the issue since we are pressed for time. I looked at the topic, which seemed to imply, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that peace is a prerequisite for economic progress. And I take the alternative view that economic progress is a prerequisite for peace. It is not the other way around. By the way, Nigeria enjoys peace. Nigeria is not at war. You know, we are in peacetime, but we are facing the threat that we may lose the peace. You know, there's a difference between a patient who is in health and is sliding into ill health, and the patient who has been ill and you are hoping, you know, will recover. So Nigeria is in the former category. They enjoy peace, but our economic stagnation is the reason the threat of anarchy stares us in the face. And I get worried when I listen to opinion leaders. The difference between Nigeria and Africa are the last not to understand, you know, that it is not about the end that you want to achieve. It is about the means with which you want to achieve the end. You don't come up with endless list of things that we must do, but we never spare a thought. But where will we find the resources with which to do them? Whatever you want to do, money answereth all things. And our mentality in Nigeria is to assume that the money will be available. And then so we'll start the year by rolling out a list of things we are going to do. We budget and we fail to fund the budget. So at the end of the day, we say we didn't do it because there was no money. So different groups in Nigeria are losing faith in the Republic for economic reasons. You know, it's like having failed to bake a large enough national cake. We are boxed into a corner in which different groups are fighting for, you know, a share of a shrinking national cake. The way out of the situation, the consensus, you know, as the DG of the DG has said, the consensus that we need is about how do we find resources to keep socio-political harmony. It is about money. If you look at China, they made a U-turn from being a hardcore communist country to embrace the market, to embrace foreign investment in search of money. They are not telling you what they want to use the money for. but they are outrunning everybody, any type of money that they can get from the global scene. Is it foreign direct investment? Is it export revenue? Is it diaspora remittances? China is either first or second. They are not discussing with you what they are going to use the money for. But you turn around, you look at defense budget, they are within the top 5. India, the same. India's economic policy program since 1991 has been LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. When you look hard at liberalization, it's about how to get money from abroad. When you look at privatization, it's about how to get money from abroad. When you look at globalization, it's about how to get money from abroad. They are not giving you a list of things they want to use the money for. They've understood that money answers all things. So whether you're talking of security insurgents, do you know that the reason why the Great Wall of China was built, was to prevent miscreants that just cross and invade, China? Unless you have the money to build the wall, you will be saying that bandits are from neighboring West African countries. There is no economy that will progress that will not be under the threat of marauders, whether of states or individuals. But if you are truly wealthy, you must be able to set some money aside to secure your wealth. To secure your wealth. So let's focus on how will Nigeria get the money to solve our endless list of problems. The day we get that right, then Nigeria can progress.
I will return to you later to expand on that thought. It's a very important thought, and you've expressed it previously and suggested some of the paths we could travel. But let's get the perspective of some of the other panelists on how the stifling economic circumstances are adding to the challenge of peace and well-being, and perhaps possibilities of how we could create wealth in spite of the looming threats, as you put them. And I'd like to grade this approach. I do know that Tony Adigbitemo speaks to a lot of SMEs, and I would like to, because when we talk about the environment, we often focus on how it affects big companies. But many of these big companies require input from SMEs, and the space for SMEs are very important. We have farmers who seem to be challenged because of these challenges of fear of going to the farm. If you look at our import list now, it would seem that besides petrol and its famous subsidy, the other thing that's now gulping all our foreign exchange is food. And yet, both petrol and food are items that Nigeria could and should be actually exporting. All of us can weigh in on this, but perhaps so you can set us off with the perspective of the SME players in this regard.
Thank you very much, Prof. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're dialing in from. And please permit me to stand on existing protocol. Everyone has mentioned, and I actually like what my predecessor said in terms of, turning this around and saying that we need, with successful economy, then we can have peace. Basically, what I've been doing in the last couple months in terms of not only talking to SMEs, but talking to the man on the street, the woman on the street, and really finding out what's going on and what they believe we need to do to get our country back on track, because everyone is complaining. Everyone is suffering from what's going on with our foreign exchange and the fact that there's now a huge inflation that's going on in the marketplace. So the farmers are doing their bit, but once it gets to the market, the amount that they're selling their goods is not meeting what the common man needs for food. So the, bread has increased, gari has increased, pepper has increased to the markets. Just, things that everyone needs in order to survive has really doubled in the last 2 to 3 months. And so that therein lies the issue and the problem around peace. How can there be peace? How can I, lay down every night and feel peaceful when my neighbor or the family, that's supporting or helping my mother, their family, they're suffering. How is that possible? So those are some of the things that we need to really kind of come to grip with and really try to address urgently in terms of the cost of living. And in terms of the SMEs, what are they lacking? Again, what they're lacking is the funding, to get their business to that next level. And how can they move their business to the next level when the cost of even the goods that they have right now, they are already, it's already upside down in terms of what they were counting on 6 or 3 months ago in terms of profit. That is now erased. So how do they now survive? So there's a lot of SMEs that are now just really struggling and hoping that the inflation will level off, sooner than later. And then, again, in terms of just women and children and what they're trying to do now, a lot of we know that there's about 10.3 or 10.4 million children out of school. That number is going to really increase even more, because now families are feeling that their children need to be out helping them to sell their products so that they can again make ends meet. Their daily wages need to be met. So I'll hold off.
Right. Well, thank you so very much. And this is open conversation here now. There's a sense that we're in a chicken and egg situation. Do we need peace to get the economy running, or do we need an economy that's running to create the well-being that will make for peace, as Ayo has tried to pose it? Obviously, it's a significant communications component in all of this, and we have some experts with us on this panel. So both of the Garbas that are here with us are supposed to be steeped in capacity around those. So can we begin with them? What are we not communicating right that is leading to this state of anomaly in our society?
So, Prof, you need to indicate which of the Garbas, the DG Noah or the DG the broadcaster.
Let's start with Garvey.
Yes, sir. Right, Prof. Honestly, I'm so pleased and delighted to be involved in this the discussion, because not a debate. The ABC has done well to bring this to, and I pray that whoever is listening from all over the world will probably listen to you more, and hopefully by the time we get to the Governor Fayemi, things will be better. Now, let me first of all say that, Prof, I have a more than 40-year experience in the media, and I would love to speak from my areas of strength. I'm a student of Kolade from 1974 from NBC, and I've seen what this country went through. I was quite pleased with the epidemic when he started his remarks, that he is not going to run away from this country, but but he doesn't also feel jealous about those who have moved to Canada, America, and United Kingdom. For me, I had two lives. Broadcasting, particularly marketing, and then regulation, advertising and marketing. And believe me, of recent, as if by divine grace, I've been thinking about this, and then suddenly ABC approached me that I'm going to get involved in this debate. Many of our young practitioners in advertising and marketing have moved to Canada. But I had the privilege to speak to some of them, including last week. And I keep asking them, what are you doing in Canada now? What are you doing in, including my own staff from ABCO? Most of them have moved. And I have even colleagues who are currently in Canada, yet they're still there waiting for manna to fall from heaven. They're not working. They're not being put to any productive use. So I begin to wonder, why would I move to Canada when I know I have a problem? I can't get a job quickly. Now, Dr. Trevor has spoken and Toyin has spoken, and I felt, well, from my point of view, sir, the media in Nigeria since 1960, I don't know, things have changed dramatically. And I have read so much about the Rwandan experience. I have listened to the Sultan, I've listened to Sanusi Lamide Sanusi, your good friend, and I've listened to Dr. Ngege about the crisis of doctors live in Nigeria. And it appears, sir, the role the media is playing, particularly what you call the Lagos axis and the northern media groups. My problem with the northern media groups, they're speaking only one language, meaning that the number of radio we have and TV stations in the north, and they're going by thousands now. They have only one language of communication. They only talk to either the Hausa or those who are Hausa speakers or who have adopted Hausa as a language. Permit me also, sir, to say I'm not very pleased and encouraged by some of the media in the Lagos axis. The way they do programming, the way they project some of our problems, particularly when they're being patronized by politicians who have some other ulterior motives. If this country goes into crisis, I must tell you that I'm born and bred in Kano, but I grew up as an Igbo man. I grew up in Enugu, and I have more Igbo friends. And I wonder, why would I go? To my friends, or do they come to me when this country goes on fire? So, bro, whether we like it or not, let's also look critically at the role of the media in this country. Are they really helping develop, or are you going to the Rwandan experience? And don't forget the influence of the breakdown of Libya, the Central African Republic, what happens in Congo. Because believe me, when I was a child, I knew what happened in Congo. My own uncle who brought me up fought in the Congo. And I keep asking him, since that time to date, Congo has not known peace. And I could clearly understand that in the role of the media created all these situations. And the Rwandan experience has shown us clearly that nobody wins in a war situation. So I don't know if the media, I don't know, but there's even no economic benefit coming from the media, because apparently all the advertising we have are coming from outside this country. So the media are broke, the agencies are broke, the PR companies are not even patronized, agencies have gone down. So what do? The media are not supported by advertising, but rather by politics in the North. Majority of politicians, whether at the state level, local government, things have gone crazy. If you listen to the radio stations, whether in Kano, Kaduna, in Maiduguri, all you hear is about politicians trying to create trouble. What are the media doing? What is NBC doing? I would have loved that NBC is involved in this discussion. Why are they not exercising the regulatory work that they're being given lawful instruments to work with? Do we allow media to start instigating Nigerians? Who would bring his money, sir? So I have a problem with that. So if we are going to have a peaceful society, even not in Nigeria and Africa, then of course, nobody will bring his money into this country when there is a war going on. So probably I will allow others to speak for time constraints. But if I'm given the opportunity, I will also go deeper into what I've said earlier. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. I will return to you if time permits. But let us go to Dr. Barry. Very briefly, People tend to expect a lot from the national orientation in how it sets the tone of public conversation. And then there's the dilemma raised by Malak, which is
Rob, you are
you
breaking.
regulate to a point, which is
Bro, you are breaking. I cannot hear you. You are
breaking. Oh, okay. I said, do you regulate to a point where the media feels gagged, or do you encourage the media to be more self-conscious about their role? You know, we have from way back those days several views of how the media can be responsible and how the media acts and why the media acts. What is your view of the best way to ensure that the media, as stakeholders, guide us to a state of peace and progress that comes from it? Or put another way, should the media just focus on what can drive up the economy in the way that Dr. Teriba has put it, and you know, so that we'll grow wealthy and then the problems will go away? Or should we canvass an attitude that reduces tension so that people can come and invest? Briefly, in just 1 minute, because I would like, as soon as you are finishing, to invite one of the ladies, Nima, to please weigh in on this conversation.
Thank you very much, Prof. First, I would want to make reference to what Abidemi had already made allusions to, which is the collapse of values. The role of the media, actually, is something which in the Constitution had been very, very well articulated, and it is something that that has been properly captured, and is the media in this country has a very long history. And if you go by the development of the media industry, you know, from the very time when it started to where we are today, you can see the gradual drift, you know, in the values and the ethics and the conduct of. So in one of my suggestions as to the way forward, I said there must be, without necessarily appearing to gird the press, without infringing on the rights of citizens to free speech, and on the and without infringing on the rights of citizens to hold opinions and to express them, our society must devise means and ways by which certain conduct will be regulated. And because we have not gotten this regulation in place, this is the reason why we see all manner of things.
It's a big conversation that we can get into, but we'll take a lot of time for now. Let me invite Nima to please, and Safia to follow. Because time is not our best friend now, at least get quick inputs from both of them. Go on, Nima.
Yes, I hope you can hear me properly. So
I can.
I mean, I've heard quite a number of things that has been said by everyone on this panel, and I do not entirely agree, but I do not entirely disagree as well, because in every democratic society you have, you know, certain elements that are expected of, you know, every democratic society. You can't also say that, you know, with return in terms of just to jump into it real quick, you can't, I mean, say that, you know, regulation has to bring in some sort of moral fabric back into the society, because when you start regulating certain aspect of, you know, democracy, it just simply means that you're moving from a democracy into a dictatorship or an autocratic system of government. So yes, does the media have a role to play in what's currently going on? Yes and no. Yes, because, you know, we all understand what it means in this day and age of fake news, and how this has been spreading with how propaganda also grows. But no, in the sense that you can't entirely put the blame on the media, because, you know, every aspect of our democracy, or every aspect of leadership, is also expected to play their part in ensuring that we live in a free, fair, and equal society.
Wait,
so when
let me
you
try again.
when you have that kind of situation whereby, you know, one aspect of the society is not being focused on, or the entire focus is on something else, you see that, you know, you're not putting the right attention where it should be. And eventually you find out that, you know, when people are not paying attention to something, it just weakens or it becomes useless. So to just put it straightforward, will I entirely blame the media for what's going on? No, I wouldn't. But do they have like a role to play? I guess so. Is regulation the answer? No. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so very much, Nima. I mean, this is a subject that I'm interested in. I've written quite a number of journal articles from my earlier life, like 40 years ago. But, you know, media influence is exaggerated sometimes. I think we came to a conclusion that the height of media influence is an agenda setting function. Because we saw the New York Times early in the 20th century endorse some very powerful candidates, and they lost elections in New York, which led to questions about, does the media really have the influence people think they have? All that hypodermic needle theory, you know, and all of that. Sure, they do have some influence. Is it an opinion leader impacting influence? What influence? Those are issues that can be debated forever. You know, three gentlemen who wrote the so-called Four Theories of the Press book many, many years ago struggled with that subject. But anyway, Ms. Hashim, if you could weigh in here on a general perception of this dilemma between which comes first, economic growth or building peace, especially bearing in mind, one of my favorite ways of looking at development is that the Great Escape, apologies to Angus Deaton, the Princeton University economist who wrote a book titled The Great Escape, Health, Wealth, and the Origins of Inequality. The Great Escape has often been a function of education and healthcare. Bearing some of those in mind, what do you think should be the pressure point? Get development going or get peace in place?
Thank you so much, Professor Pat. This is a very interesting question, and I don't believe we have one answer, one very straight answer. This is very much contextual. And I'll give you an example. A few days ago, the Kaduna Abuja bound train was attacked, right? That mode of transportation had become the main means of transport for people, especially across the north, moving from Abuja to other parts of the north, just to evade using the roads in Kaduna due to insecurity. And we know a lot of people travel across to go to meetings, to be productive in many senses. And essentially, the lack of peace impeded that, right? So in this particular context, one, peace is very much intertwined with economic prosperity, and economic prosperity over decades impacts how peace or the lack of peace is established, which we have seen very predominantly or very prominently in northern Nigeria, the absolute scathing percentage of poverty has over the past few decades established itself as a form of insecurity. And you know, we've witnessed the level of terrorism and whatever brand of terrorism it is that we're witnessing in northern Nigeria now is as a result of that lack of economic prosperity. So like I said earlier, it is very much contextual to what we're looking at, and over a period of time, one will definitely influence the other. And yeah, I'll just stop there.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. I mean, it's again, this chicken and egg thing will keep going. Perhaps it's more. It will probably be more like a debate between the. Sorry to say it for people who have a religious challenge to debate between the pig and the hen about who contributes more to breakfast. And the hen says, "Look, all these eggs I lay get consumed every day. Look at how much I contribute to breakfast." And the pig says, "Well, you make a partial commitment. I make a total commitment, because to get the bacon, I lose my life." So, Ayo, I'm just bearing that in mind, and this question of which comes first, economic development versus peace. I'd like to turn back to you on something that I tend to focus very stoutly on. I like to make the point that production trumps revenues, and that part of the problem of the decline of economic performance in Nigeria is that the political culture has focused more on revenues and sharing of revenues as against production. I mean, Ms. Hashim was making a point. I grew up in northern Nigeria in the 60s, started school in Kano in 1960, and it was beautiful life with the pyramids, all of those things. But they had disappeared because something happened to production. And with more revenues in real terms moving north, greater poverty has been in the north, creating, in effect, what those revenues have done is create the lottery effect. Where you see a poor person who has won the lottery, a few years later, they are much poorer than they were before they won the lottery. How do you weigh in on this perspective?
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I would like to, comment on the real example that Hashim had given. Some people bombed the Kaduna-Abuja rail track. And, for her, the only hope for safe travel in that axis, the roads are not safe. Now the rail tracks were bombed, and that undermines peace. And I say that any country, Nigeria did not invent rail transportation. Any country that cannot deploy adequate surveillance on the rail tracks, those tracks are meant to be nationwide. They are meant to be, running 24 hours. Any country that can't deploy, surveillance and security measures, any idiot will go and bomb it. That's the point we are making. It is Nigeria's lack of the capacity to provide surveillance, not just of the rail tracks, of our forests, of our city centers, of our transit routes. That's why hoodlums have taken over. We are talking of common hoodlums. So Nigeria should sit down and ask the question, where can we find the money to provide us? Security is money, defense is money. Production that Prof is saying has collapsed comes down to infrastructure and energy supply. We don't have infrastructure because we don't have the money. And unfortunately, these days it's really no revenue and production are the same. You know, they're similar. You know, you sell, your sales brings you revenue. If you produce, you still have to sell or trade it. So it's the same. Government exports oil and gets bulk of its revenue from. That's still production. They are this. They are you know, national income, national output. They are all balanced income statement items. They are all flows. You know, current flows of resources into the country, export, income, you know, revenue, whatever. Countries are moving away from revenue, production, income focus to their balance sheets. The bulk of the money going into the wealthiest countries today, or the fastest growing developing countries today, enters through their balance sheet, not through their income statement. You go and check a very, very good example, very practical example. Invest India Grid. You know, India Investment Grid, check it. They have listed like 14,000 projects, including 100 smart cities, including all the drainage, all the roads, all the rail tracks that we are talking about, including their surveillance. And they expect to fetch $2 trillion from them. They didn't put a date. That's what I'm talking about. Countries are now focusing on assets and are presenting that asset as investment opportunities. And the world is investing in those assets. Brazil is feeding fat on it. India is feeding fat on it.
You know that I agree with you. I share with you on discussion on that subject.
Yes.
But as you know, you still have to dress the country up a bit for those assets to look more attractive to those people who will come. I agree completely with you, but something has to be done to create a welcoming environment. Think of the investor, I forgot the French investor, who many years ago flew into Lagos in his private jet. He came to make a big investment, and after the treatment he got at the airport, he just turned around, got in his plane and left. So there's work that we need to do. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all of that. Let me invite a quick two questions from participants, and we'll take responses from you, the panelists, before we round up, because our time is out on us almost already. Yes, any questions? If hands are raised, we can then recognize the hands that are raised and have them ask a question. Mrs. Olele, does anyone see a hand that I can't see? If not, let me ask.
Not that we can see.
Oh, okay. Malan Kankarfi, just a quick weigh in of 45 seconds on how should we create this environment. People are talking to each other. Democracy. I am a big fan of German philosopher Jürgen Habermas, contemporary philosopher of the public sphere. And Habermas' thesis is that modernity and democracy are defined by rational public conversation. How do we get the media that will be a marketplace of ideas in which there is rational public conversation going on in the greater good, the greater interest, the common good of all?
Thank you very much, Prof. Very quickly, as if you you are present, the last 1 month has been this same question that you ask. We as broadcasters, past and present, we've been trying to answer this question. Unfortunately, sir, during Colade and subsequently other DGs and FRC and NBC and Voice of Nigeria, even Voice of America, you can never be allowed to speak unless you're fully and well trained. Today, the media, whether in Lagos, whether in Port Harcourt, because of the huge number of media available to the society, The uneducated is just like social media. People who have never been to any. I'm a member of NIJ, and we're really wondering how anybody can be a journalist without being trained. So, sir, I think partly the politicians, unfortunately, Nigerian top politicians, are using these media houses, not the regular media houses, but those who are looking for money, because many of 98, 99% of the media in Nigeria cannot make ends meet, sir. Many people, I don't know how they make ends meet to buy diesel, to pay staff. You are fully aware that many of the media, including those in Lagos, aren't able even to pay salary. So this issue, sir, is a major issue. That is why, like Nima, who disagreed and agreed, she needs to be in the midst. It's like you need to have it's only those who, I can recall clearly why Professor Dora Akinwumi fought the drug manufacturers, because she lost somebody. Professor Shoika was against the drug manufacturers because he lost somebody clear to himself. In the media, it's only those who are victims of the media that know how bad it affects them. I swear to you, people like Nima probably are lucky. They're born with golden spoon. But those who are the victims of the media will know better. That is not, it's just like the police brutality I've been talking about since morning and since all these weeks. The owners of the media now are looking for money. They're not looking for the unity of this country, like you said, sir. You and I were brought up by the same society. I was born in Kano, grew up in Enugu. You're born in probably Enugu and then brought up in Kano. We know the pyramid. We know what obtains. I have a brother who is Igbo that I trained up to PhD level today. I can boast my Margaret's mama was born and bred in North. We interact. I adopted her as my sister for the last 30 years or more. So the media house, whether we like or not, government need to come in. Or people like you, sir, who can perhaps appeal to the conscience of the media owners to please love this country, because if this country goes on fire, I believe in me, Prof, I have nowhere to run to. Even to Nigeria, I can't run away. I have to stay back. So seriously, sir, believe me, this has been in the forefront of bond discussions, including even the ministry. Why are these media? And the once you speak about people like the anti-establishment will start saying that is going to be self-censorship, people must do self-censorship, or government are trying to gag the press. You recall the debate at the National Assembly recently about the social media bill, sir. Yeah, in polity as much as everyone else, and you know why it pinches most. You're not the same Professor Padu told me that I knew when I was in school, reading about you and studying you and wanted to be like you when I was in the university. Where are these heroes now? Who wants to be
I'm luckier than you.
Sir,
I was born in Kaduna. I was raised in Jos. I lived in Maiduguri. I started school in Kano. I finished school in Guzo, and I came to Ibadan. So you see, my trajectory is a little even broader than yours. And I went to University of Nigeria in Nsukka. But the point I think that is so important to make is that leadership matters, and leaders set the tone of culture, and culture determines human progress. That is the challenge that we face, to groom leaders, to use education to bring the quality of people who in public life will set the tone of culture, and to get civil society to hold even the media accountable like it holds politicians, or it should hold politicians accountable, so that we can focus on what matters, which is the common good of all Nigerians. Because as you say, if the place goes on fire, not only will all of us suffer, the whole of West Africa will go under, like Robert Kaplan suggested in the book, The Coming Anarchy. But to keep people quiet may not be the way to do it. It has to be that responsible, rational, public conversation that creates that you know, marketplace of ideas which leads to progress.
Prof,
I think that we
interject.
can talk some more, but it's time to hand over. Sorry?
Please, I would just like to give a rebuttal to what
okay. 30 seconds.
Okay, to what Mr. Galva has said. It's funny that he thinks that, you know, because I haven't been a victim of the media, if he has been paying attention, he would know that I've actually faced my own fair share from the Nigerian media and propaganda. But that's not the point here. I feel like, I mean, if, like I said earlier on, before we make such, you know, statement about regulation of the media and who is meant to be if they deserve to be regulated or not, we need to ask ourselves the crucial questions. Do we want a democracy or do we want a dictatorship? Now, when that happens, you should know that if you say that, you know, you don't want a democracy, all the aids and the foreign direct investment, the international relations that you have going on for you, best believe that's going to have to stop, because the world isn't for dictatorship anymore. The world is now for a democratic one. So if you're going to say...
Yes, but Nima, it's much more than what the world is for.
Just 1 minute.
It is really...
With the exception of China.
Just 1 minute. So if you're going to say that, you know, you want your media regulated, what you're going to eventually have is a situation where you are releasing or moving yourself from democracy down into a dictatorship. And I'm not sure we are ready for that as a country.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm not so sure that the reason I should be worried about that is because the world wants us to be some way. I think that for peace between peoples, it's always good to have everybody's dignity upheld. And this is what the democratic process tends to do. But there are different definitions of democracy. This is why China can manage to have a meritocracy that makes for so much progress, and those who are not Democrats sometimes go there. I would necessarily want to live in China, but I'm just saying that there are different patterns. However, I agree with you that you cannot say the media should be regulated in a manner that will eventually stifle free speech. But media economics is a big issue.
Said you wouldn't want to live in China, so we'll leave it at that.
The Ayo's point, you know, comes back again and again and again. I don't know. Maybe we need to define our democracy differently. Maybe you need a certain level of education to be able to vote. Maybe the Americans, when they started out, went through all of that. They knew that one man, one vote was important, but you needed to have property, which was a surrogate for education and maturity at a point to be able to vote and all of that. I don't have a clear answer, but I think we need to build institutions that help us move towards the greater good of all. And that's what people like Neil Ferguson, the British historian, the point they make when he says the making of the U.S. Constitution is probably one of the greatest efforts as institution building in human history. Like I've argued in many places, I was shocked when I first read it. How can you say so sweeping a thing? But as I've reflected and reflected and reflected, I'm coming close to his position on that subject. Anyway, we don't have enough time to go into those details, so I'll just hand over to Margaret and say that one thing is clear: all of us want a prosperous and peaceful Nigeria. We may disagree a little bit on how to pursue it, but it is critical that we all make that commitment, because Nigeria is a country of great potential. And it's not just about the population, it's about the human and other natural resources. This country, if it focuses right, invests appropriately in its young people, will convert this youth bulge that it has into a demographic dividend. Right now, that youth bulge is threatening to be a source of instability and lack of peace, but it can be a strength that can take us forward. How that happens depends on how all of us here play in that arena to positively point our country in the right direction. Over to you, Margaret.
Thank you very much, Prof, for actually rounding off before I round off. It's really a great delight to have everyone here. First of all, I'd like to thank the great panelists we have and the moderator. These are experts that we don't get the opportunity to have in a room to share their insights, and I'm really grateful for them making themselves available. And once more to apologize for the complexities we had at the beginning, and hope that you all bear with us for the future and for future programs. So if I hear everyone correctly, we're saying that peace is imperative for economic growth, and that the issue around peace is not it's not just for one person, but it is a collective responsibility. It starts with a personal responsibility, but then personal commitment, and then moves into a communal responsibility. Different stakeholders have a role to play: the media, in even the startups, the SMEs, or those who are providing support there, and those who are grooming the teeming youth that we have to become potential leaders that can drive opportunities. We do not want a dictatorship. We love a democracy. Just Nima, just to put things in clear perspective, and we also want a country and a people who are personal, who will be accountable for the things they do or say. And so on this note, hoping that we could just really go on and on, but time is obviously not on our side. I would like to once again thank everyone, and on behalf of the President of American Business Council and every member of the council, I would like to share our thanks and hope that you join us in another exciting webinar that will be coming up shortly. Thank you very much, everyone, and have the best and the best rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
God bless you for us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret, I would love to continue this debate with Nima. I beg.
All right. I see.
Please link us up, because she seems to be a young girl with a lot of dreams, but the reality is different on the ground.
Yeah, quite a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Quite a lot. Yeah.
I think maybe tell her, probably you're close to her. There are many things that don't look so rosy for now.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
I think everyone's experience is important.